everybody. Welcome to the Crossover Talk Show. I'm your host, Travis Garrison, where we talk sports and life. I got a very special guest with me today, my special friend, Miss Susan Rosenstock, co-founder of UMTTR. How are you doing today? It's been a long time.
Doing great, and thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Absolutely. Obviously we've been friends for a number of years, and we connected. Wow, back in
13.
Wow, 2013. Yeah, right at I think we were at the National Harbor for I think it's like a tournament, some type of tournament, basketball tournament, right?
It was the 3-on-3. Who was the who? Not hoop culture. It was a 3-on-3, and at that time, the tournament was in preparation to because 3-on-3 was going to be an Olympic sport.
Right. Absolutely.
And we were going to represent the DMV for our team.
Absolutely. And UMTTR. Now, what is UMTTR, and why did you start it or help start it?
Yeah, in 2013, in May, my 16-year-old son, who was a basketball player, he was a varsity player in 10th grade, ended his life by suicide. He had a back injury, which led to surgery, and after surgery, he fell into a depression because he felt like he would never be able to play basketball again. Part of that was how his coach and team were so busy, they didn't really were able to really spend a lot of time with him. And he fell into a depression and told us, I mean, it was the best thing I could hope for as a parent, is that when your child comes to you and says, I'm having a problem, can you help me fix it? And after a bunch of physical tests, he said, if everything comes back normal, I'd like to go talk to somebody. So we took him to a psychiatrist, and she unfortunately prescribed him medication that should never have been prescribed for a 16-year-old boy. And he was what they call a black box warning, where on the medication it said this medication can cause increased thoughts of suicides in young adults. And so Evan was somebody who ended up having those thoughts and acted upon them. And then one day, really the whole community really changed. He was somebody who was on AAU teams, he was on I-270 teams, he was coached by Eddie Jordan, the professional basketball coach. He was MVP and all-star teams, and so it was a real shock to everybody who knew him and who had played basketball with him. And 4 different friend groups of his came to me and said the exact same thing, which was, if this could happen to Evan, this could happen to anyone, and we're scared. We don't want to lose another friend. We want to start a 3-on-3 basketball tournament and raise money for teen suicide prevention, research, advocacy. So I've got all of those kids together, and they literally saved my life, because that summer we went around knocking on professional basketball players, hockey players, owners of sports teams, their doors to say, hey, we need your help. And through people like you and Alpha and a bunch of people from AAU and all around the DMV area, we were able to start a peer-led group where kids help kids. So what I do is I protect their voice. So our goal is to stop suicide, and
Right.
through that we spread messages of hope, help, and strength, never shock, trauma, and sadness. We help identify the 5 signs of emotional suffering, as well as the 5 healthy habits for emotional well-being. And when kids get together and they share those, they're able to say, hey, wait, I might be having that struggle, or my friend might be having this struggle, or my sister, my brother, my parents, whoever. But it helps them identify those feelings, because I'm not 16, and
Right.
last I checked, and and so with that, this allows them to hear what those traits might look like in their friends or someone else.
No, absolutely. And, you know, a very unfortunate situation that happened. And, you know, but what you're doing now in regards to trying to help other teens not go through the same things. And like you said, a lot of times, you know, because I have kids, they may not want to come talk to mom or dad or another adult, and they may feel more comfortable talking to another kid their age or their classmate, where they feel more comfortable because they talk all the time anyway. You
Mhm.
know, and by having this, I think it was huge, in regards to, you know, stopping things like that, because, you know, obviously nowadays with everything that's going on in school in regards to bullying and all these different things, and you're seeing a lot of kids that do commit suicide because of things like that, or they're going through, you know, the bullying and you know, getting harassed by other kids in their class. So I think, you know, obviously you matter is huge, and it's definitely needed. Now, is it? I know it started in Maryland. Now, how many? Where is it? I know it's grown so much since the last time we spoke, and I know a couple people that's actually doing it in college now as well too. Correct?
Yep. What's happened is, I think because this is a peer-led movement and these kids feel empowered to take on this role of being able to speak to their friends, and I protect their voice in order to say to adults, no, 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 let's listen to them.
Right.
They took it, well, we had 5 3-on-3 tournaments, and were very successful. And then from there, his friends who had initially started this now went to college. And my daughter was at the University of Michigan when this happened. And she went back and started the first college chapter of UMatter at the University of Michigan.
Wow.
And she was interviewed by the Michigan Daily, and they asked her, what's the difference between your group and other mental health groups? And she said it was the sports aspect, because we work with the Positive Coaching Alliance to
Mm.
really understand athletes and so they invited her to a group on campus. The Michigan Athletic Department calls
Wow.
Allison one day and
Wow.
says, we'd like you to serve on Athletes Connected, which is their group that all the mental health groups and clubs sit on in order to be able to help athletes be able to work through their uh, issues they might be having, or, as you said, bullying, things like that. So that was our first chapter. And then from there, we went on and had about 17 chapters,
Wow.
different colleges and universities. And that ebbs and flows based on the kids that are there. We also started other high school chapters outside of the DMV area, which was in Connecticut and upstate New York. Those were high school chapters. And then an interesting thing happened after these kids now have graduated college. They've contacted me and asked what role they can still have with You Matter. So we've now
Wow.
asked them to become the advisors for local
Wow.
chapters or college chapters, wherever they may be. So it keeps carrying the message. And I believe truly in my heart of hearts, based on who Evan was, that when he passed away and they had a memorial service at the gym, 1,300 kids, my friend counted, 1,300 kids came up to me one on one and told me about my son. And the
Wow.
common theme was Evan helped me. Evan was the one I went to when I had a problem. One girl said to me, I was having a problem with my mom, and I sat with Evan and spoke to him. And then after we were sitting for a minute quiet, he told me about his mom. And
Wow.
these were like gifts to me that I could get from, like a fly on his high school career
Wow.
at that time. And so I believe that Evan's theme in life was to help people a lot more than I ever knew. And now I think that this was God's plan for me to continue his mission of helping people and continuing that message of spreading hope, help, and strength.
Right. And I'm sure that it helped so many people, you know, not like you said, not just in this area, and you've seen the effect that it has on his friends and what they're doing. And I knew them, I met them, and I believe it was in high school when I met them, and then they went up to college. And now you saying your daughter graduated, I'm like, geez, how old am I right now?
No,
So
I believe me, I feel the same way. When I say 9 years, I'm blown away. I'm blown away. Seems like yesterday.
it does seem like yesterday, but they are continuing the mission going forward, and it's growing beyond high school, and it's continuing to college, and then they're coming back and helping other and becoming the advisors. So obviously, it's helping so many people, and obviously things are more focused on the mental aspect of people because with this mental illness or whatever they may be going through, depression, and we're seeing that a lot of more focal point is going on that, especially like in college, because I remember back when I was in college and I was going through things, we didn't really have somebody we can talk to about it. So, how do you express yourself, or, or who do you feel comfortable with talking to about these things that you may be going through, whether it's because of you taking a hard class and you're struggling in school, or, you're playing a sport and you're trying to focus on how you balance both. So obviously these programs are much needed. And I think people are starting to put more of the importance of it and to think how that could be important and help other people throughout their journey, whatever that journey is.
Oh, definitely. The young adults who have started out with You Matter have exceeded all my expectations in the sense that because of this, they became psychologists. They're managers of sports teams. One young man is now, after college, a manager of another college team. So they've really continued that mission of really understanding how their role can continue to help others. It's really interesting to see how that generation is way more open about mental health. They don't feel the same stigma that we do and that people have about mental health. When I tell people that my son died by suicide, it's a different reaction depending upon what age group I'm speaking to.
Right.
And, there are people who think, oh my gosh, he must have been a drug addict or, something like that. But in fact, no, he was prescribed a medication that in 7 weeks took his life. And so it's important for us to realize that. And I think from the case of athletes, that's really been what our hook was, because the coach of his team didn't make him feel welcome to the team after he had surgery. And I'm sure that's just because we were mid-season and things were busy, but he felt like he was no longer part of the team. And now what we've been able to do is, by joining forces with the Positive Coaching Alliance, we were able to fund and start the Mid-Atlantic Regional Chapter, which is the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. And that they had just gotten a staff person down to our area when this happened, and we contacted him right away, and he said, this isn't his role to be, providing support for something like this, but we felt it was extremely important to take the steps to correct the action that happened, which is to be able to teach coaches how to work with their athletes and how to have athletes fill up their emotional cup, their emotional tank. And their programs have been proven effective. Steve Young is one of their spokespeople, Dusty Baker. I mean, there's Travis, who's the famous basketball coach that put LA.
You're talking about Phil Jackson.
Yes, Phil Jackson. Thank you.
Wow.
Phil Jackson is one of their spokespeople. So they are really top notch in who they're recruiting or who represents them. And unfortunately, 70% of kids drop out of organized sports by the time they're in third grade.
Wow.
Because it's not fun anymore. And
Right.
so if they're not having fun, why would they want to do an extracurricular sport?
Right.
So through that piece of it for the Positive Coaching Alliance, we were out in LA. We did the LA Marathon with them. We've just really expanded to be able to make our voices known at the Positive Coaching Alliance and their chapters, and be able to have some of our programs go with them as well. They've adopted You Matter, and it's spelled UMTTR because the only vowel is the U, because it's you that matters. So this is how they spelled it. And they say you matter and your life matters.
Right.
And we've also been able to do some really amazing, powerful stuff in the world of mental health. Michael Sweetney was somebody who is part of our bailiwick of athletes like yourself who have come to us and said, you know, I really struggled, and we've been able to get his story out. Well, you have a 9th overall pick in the draft come to you, play for the Knicks and the Bucks, and say, you know, we need to do something. It's pretty powerful. Chris Monroe, the all-time leading scorer for GW, is part of our group, and we've been able to work with them and their organizations. Chris is still at GW working there, and Mike has had us to various different camps and things that he's done, and it's been a really amazing expansion. And again, with these kids, they share what their feelings are about these. They identify what those ideas and things that come to their mind feel like. And that's when somebody sitting next to them can really identify. As well, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story here, but everybody remembers the Sandy Hook shootings that happened in Newtown, Connecticut in 2012. Well, after that, the White House at the time convened its first mental health summit. And out of that summit was a committee that was charged with coming up with 5 signs that people could recognize, similar to stroke and heart. So if we're sitting there and somebody's having a heart attack, we might not know all 5 of them, but we know that they're having something, you know, stroke or heart, that can really be helped at that moment if we act quickly. So the 5 signs of emotional suffering came out of that committee, and it was created to have a common language so that we can all understand what it would feel if you got a personality change, if you're agitated, if you're withdrawn, if you have poor self-care, or you're hopeless. Now, those 5 things we could talk about, and what you would identify as agitation might be different than a young child or a teenager or a young adult. So that's where the power of the peer-led movement comes in, because that's when they talk about it and say, oh yeah, I get questions all the time from parents that ask me, what's the difference between typical teenage behavior and these 5 signs? So, you know, those are the types of things that by having the kids express themselves, they are able to really identify those, which makes it easier for me to help parents. The following year after that summit happened, we were over in England. We had our second meeting with this, the Campaign to Change Direction in Mental Health, which, by the way, was launched by Michelle Obama and at the museum, and we were 1/4 of the audience that were there in our white You Matter shirts. So we made a powerful statement there, and we were also one of the founding members of that campaign. So the next year, when we went over to England, we joined up with, at the time, Prince Harry's group called Heads Up. And out of that year's summit came the 5 healthy habits for emotional well-being, which those are what I like to focus on more because it's more positive. And it's take care, check in, engage, relax, and then know those 5 signs. And the reason I say that I like to focus on those first is because it's a known fact that 1 in 5 people in the United States suffer from a mental health issue. So my question is, what do the other 4 do to stay healthy? That's what I want to focus on. Let's flip it and say, okay, how do we keep our young adults healthy and in touch? And that's where it really benefits a lot of kids. And you're right, I have been told that I've saved lives, and it's it's an interesting thing to hear on one hand, and it's a blessing on the other. And the idea that somebody can come up to me, a teenager, and say, I want you to know you saved my life. And I believe them because of, I wouldn't want to be a kid now in high school. It's just too difficult. I mean, personally, I think social media is probably the detriment to a lot of kids. I mean, I think my grandchildren won't have social media because it's been such a detriment to society.
No, absolutely.
Body shaming, you have then people who hide behind it, like everything is great and wonderful, but it's really not. And so they're not able to really express themselves, or they're creating false accounts to bully somebody else or make fun. I mean, it's just sad. So I think it's something that they won't want to see in their future.
Right. Now, with You Matter, did you think it would be as big as it is today?
I thought it was going to be 1 3-on-3 basketball tournament at Bullis High School in Potomac. That's it. I never had any idea that this would go the way it has. And it's just shown how much these kids have really wanted and needed it.
Absolutely. And so do you have any events coming up or anything that you're planning or in the works?
Well, with COVID, we've had a bit of a challenge. What we do, we've had care boxes going out during COVID. We had masks made, and so we'll have a Zoom, and a bunch of people will be on making their own boxes, care boxes that we'll send to the elderly or to people who are at high risk. Especially during COVID. But I'm living in Florida, and I have become a board member of the Southeast chapter for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, who is one of our biggest recipients of funds to be able to, they're the leading organization in suicide prevention. They do advocacy, research, and education. So through that, I've been able to join forces with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention to work on things like we're having a walk, and we just had a comedy show, and it was really nice. It was called Stand Up for Hope, and and it was a great show. So I've always been somebody who's a collaborative person. I believe that if we pool our resources, we can be so much more than if we pull apart our resources, because the dollars need to be used effectively and efficiently. And when everybody's tightening their belts in corporations, rather than sponsoring 5 organizations, they may only want to sponsor 1. So that's where we become very collaborative, as we do with the Positive Coaching Alliance, program called Sources of Strength, which is the only peer-led educational program that is in schools. They have a whole proven effective program that they do all year long about it, and they have protective factors, and the kids run campaigns, and again, it's peer led. And that's what we feel is really important, is to empower those children, young adults, teenagers, with those tools to be able to help themselves or someone else.
No, absolutely. Like I said, I think, you know, even when I first met you, what you all was doing, and obviously I heard the story when you told me the story, um, and then everything that's been taking place since, and how many kids got involved, and you know, me meeting some of the kids, and I'm actually still friends with some of these kids. You know, obviously through social media, seeing everything that they're doing and how they're progressing and how they're moving forward, and all the great things that they're doing. Um, we used to talk. I mean, we talked all the time in regards to, you know, things that you were trying to do and the changes that you're trying to help make, and you're doing it. I mean, like I said, think about how many chapters there are now, how far has it grown, and how many people are involved, and how big it's grown. And it's going to get bigger. It's going to continue to get bigger. Now, the focus is on mental health and the importance of it, and having people there to help, and organizations like yours, and the things and the positive things that it's doing. So how can more kids get involved, or how can people get involved? How can people help support? Where can they find more about this, more information about You Matter and you, and stay in contact, or, you know?
Well, people are shocked when I tell them, but my personal cell phone number and my personal email are on our web page. And if you give me a second, I can share my screen, or it's umttr.org. And let's see, I'm a little worried about sharing the screen, but in any case, we have on here all the information about how we started. We were about to have a awards banquet for some of the key people
Wow.
until COVID hit. One thing, so umatter.org, it's umttr.org. And let me see if I can do this without, are you seeing my screen?
Yes, I am.
Which screen are you seeing?
I'm seeing the You Matter screen. We know
Okay,
the
this
five.
one. Okay, great. Yep, so there's Michael Sweetney, Monique, another athlete from women's basketball. And here we have joining the conversation. And down here is a YouTube video of the young man whose brainchild this was originally, and he talks about how and what made him decide to start. And of course, there's my friend who has a You Matter shirt, Michelle Obama.
Wow.
And we talk about, you know, that You Matter supports only evidence-based programs, and that really from 10 to 34, it is the second leading cause of death.
Wow.
10 to 34 years old, the second leading cause of death is suicide. And as well, you can see there's a robust press page of all of our in the news activities. I've been speaking in Florida fairly often, and it goes on from here, where we've had many things going on. Glenn Consor is involved. So you can contact us here and you will get an email, but this information right here, either the info or Sue at You Matter, both come to me personally. So we'd love to have everybody involved that can be, and remind everybody that you matter. So simple. I've changed the way I greet people now. I say to people, how's your mental health today? Because very often we say, hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? And the person's walking away before you even can answer anything. You know, it's just become a greeting that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
So changing those little behaviors have really made a difference to people. I am thrilled when people say, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that I matter today. And nobody's ever asked me, how's my mental health? And, you know, it's a little weird, especially because they don't know me and I don't know them. But they say good if they don't really want to talk, but the people who do want to talk, if they say it's not great, I'm there to listen.
Yeah.
Somebody cares, and that's
Right.
really what we all want.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're definitely a great greeter. You know, a hugger with the best hugs ever. But no, I definitely appreciate your time. I know we were trying to connect a number of times, but I'm glad our schedule allowed you to to join the crossover talk show with me. It was definitely great seeing you and catching up, and I look forward to catching up with you more. Obviously offline, but you know, it was great seeing you. It's definitely still going. I'm glad you matter is still doing great things. It's going to continue to do great things and continue to get bigger because you know, more of these kids that's involved in high school, they're going to do what? They're going to go to college. They're going to start doing things in their colleges. And then when they come back, they're going to become advisors. The cycle's just going to keep on going.
We hope so. We hope so because everybody does need to know, and I really think that this generation is not as stigmatized by mental health because of things like this.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I definitely appreciate you joining us today, Mrs. Susan Rosenstock. I hope you take care of yourself and you continue to do great things like you've been doing. And I love you, and it's great seeing you.
Too. Great seeing you too, and congratulations on your show.
Thank you very much.
All right.